Monday, September 10th, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. This morning I'd like to talk about two books that I think are vital to understand our present monetary and political system. Of course, these are books that are not going to be taught in schools or university because it goes against the establishment and it exposes our monetary political system for what it is, which is a fraudulent system that extracts wealth from the general public for the establishment or for the banking political establishment. The first one that I really think people need to read is this one here. What Has Government Done to Our Money by Murray Rothbard, and the case for 100% gold dollar, which I agree with him. It can be found on the Mises website, mises.org, or Amazon. I'll put a link below in the description. But yeah, it's a book that will actually make you understand the monetary system and why having gold and silver is so important. You will understand what inflation is all about and how the government is actually legally plundering you. And that's what Frederick Bastiat talks about in his classic book, The Law. And he even says the classic blueprint for a just society. And I'll put the link below in the description if you want to get a hold of this as well. Before I start going a little deeper into the books, of course, I'm going to look at what the markets are doing this morning in London. It is a bit earlier today. It's just gone past 7 a.m. Is it too early to look at the markets? No. When I worked in the city, I used to get to my desk just before 7 a.m. A lot of my clients were in Europe, continental Europe. They're an hour ahead. They're getting to the office kind of around now, 8 o'clock. Even London clients get in the office at 7. And why so early? Even though the stock market, for example, opens at 9 or 9:30 in other places. Because the futures market, they trade 24/7. And the FX market is also 24/7. So people are already trading. So people come in the office early. And that's how it works. That's why long hours in the city. So right now, spot gold is 1192.50. It's down 3.5. The range has been 1197 to 1191.50. Am I concerned? No. I will show you a story that I read in King World News that will probably make you change your mind about how gold and silver are positioned. Silver, 1410, down 5 cents. Range has been 1406 to 1424. The Dow is up 36, 25,960. The S&P is up 4.5, 2877. So both up 0.15%. The NASDAQ is up 20 or 0.25%. NASDAQ 100 future 74.51. Cable or the pound is down 5 pips, so virtually unchanged, 129.11. The euro as well unchanged, 115, 45. And the dollar is just slightly weaker against the yen, 110.97. So it's awkward and strange that gold and silver are down as much as they are. Usually they track the fiat currencies a bit, but nevertheless, that's where it is. Dollar is up slightly against the yuan at 687. Crude oil WTI is up 0.5%. At $68 right now. What about the emerging markets? Well, the Turkish lira is, the dollar is up 0.75% at 6.44. Bond markets, The Italian 10-year yield is at 304, down 2 basis points. Again, the 320, 325 level is the key level there. The higher yields go, the more problems there are for Italy. So that's just to let you know. The 10-year yield, U.S. is creeping back up towards 3%. We're now at 294, unchanged from Friday. And just before I go on to the books, I'll show you this story on King World News. I'll put a link to it below as well. Major alert, first time in 17 years, commercials long gold plus a silver shocker. Well, the commercials are the bullion banks, mostly the bullion banks and some of the miners. But they're the ones who manipulate the price of gold, the bullion banks, of course, for the central banks. And it's very rare for them to be long gold, so it's the first time in 17 years. And that's a bullish sign, because usually the commercials are right. The speculators get hosed in the gold market. Speculators are like hedge funds and small traders. So that's a good bullish sign for gold. This is to do with the gold futures contract, of course. And in silver, he says it's a shocker. Well, it's the first time in 24 years that the commercials are long in silver. So that's, I think, important for you to know about, even though, as I said, if you want to be your own central bank, sovereign and independent, you have to hold on to your physical precious metals. The other thing you need to think about is if you exchange your precious metals to fiat money, you are actually financing the deep state and the bankers. So let's start with what has government done to our money. From the introduction by Murray Rothbard, this is what he says. Let us first ask ourselves the question, can money be organized under the freedom principle? Can we have a free market in money as well as in other goods and services? What would be the shape of such a market? And what are the effects of various governmental controls? If we favor the free market in other directions, if we wish to eliminate government invasion of person and property, we have no more important task than to explore the ways and means of a free market in money. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why this is not taught in the state schools or public schools, as you call it in the States. You wouldn't have big government. You wouldn't have the inflation we have if we had sound money. So I won't read from the book any passages, but I highly recommend it. I'll just kind of make a summary of the most important points. It's not a long book. It's an easy read. It's a couple of 100 pages. So the Austrian school, they have what you call the regression theory of analyzing things. They go back to the beginning to analyze how things started out, and they do that with money. And Rothbard talks about how societies evolved from hunter-gatherers to small communities, and how people started exchanging goods, and then some services. And he explains how this bartering or exchange, which is direct exchange barter, sometimes it became cumbersome or difficult because the other party you wanted to barter with didn't have what you needed. So through trial and error, through free exchange, free, how can I say, through mutual agreement, the parties, if money evolved, and money became a commodity that was the most marketable commodity. It was something that everyone wanted, so it facilitated it facilitated the bartering, and it facilitated indirect exchange. What would be an example? Well, if I was a farmer who had chickens and had a lot of eggs, and I needed, to buy a pair of shoes, and the shoemaker, he didn't want eggs. He had enough eggs. So it was difficult for me to get a pair of shoes. But if I had something that everyone wanted, like silver or gold, the shoemaker would take it, and that's how it evolved. And of course, it's not only being gold and silver that have been money. There's been other things like salt. The word salary comes from salt. Cigarettes in post-World War II Germany, conches, whatever people need, and whatever people value, and is the most marketable commodity. So money facilitated indirect exchange. It also became a store of value eventually, but it had to represent some kind of wealth. And what Rothbard explains here is that governments have hijacked that, and through legal tender laws, they've created fiat money. And right now, money has very little value because the way money has been corrupted, and it's produced out of thin air on the back of taxpayers. And that's how it works. And that's where we come to The Law by Frederick Bastiat, another real classic. I highly recommend it. So what do people say about the book? It says, the law created order in my thinking about liberty and just human conduct. Walter Williams. And it goes on to say, statesman, essayist, and economist Frederick Bastiat was a renowned champion of individual freedom, and The Law, first published in 1850, is Bastiat's most famous and enduring work. Joseph Schumpeter, the most brilliant economic journalist who ever lived. Václav Klaus, former Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, a great prophet of liberty, the free society, and the free market. So basically, one of the main tenets of his philosophy, Frederick Bastiat, is that government should be there to protect individual freedom, property, and liberty of people. But unfortunately, what's happened is that the government has been using the law to legally plunder the people, and that's what fiat money inflation does, because the government gives a select group of people the power to issue wealth, the most marketable commodity out of thin air. They are actually issuing pretend wealth, and that's why it's unfair. They get access to that pretend wealth first, and with that they exchange it for real wealth, and that's why inflation hurts the general public so much. But the people who have access, who create that inflation, they know how corrupt the system is, and they exchange that very quickly towards hard assets, productive assets. That's why if you ask a very wealthy individual, even Warren Buffett says, cash is trash, right? So there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on Steemit, DTube, and on Twitter. I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.